Everybody, welcome aboard here to Fox Sports on the Road. I'm your host, Michael Cohen. And of course, this weekend on Sunday, we have one of the biggest games of the year. Giant fans have been waiting for this for a very long time. It's been 6 years since the Giants have had a playoff game. And here we go, Big Blue going into Minnesota to face the Vikings on Sunday afternoon at 4:30. Joining me today to talk about the Giants-Vikings matchup and this season is Charlotte Carroll of The Athletic. She is a beat writer for covering the Giants. Charlotte, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. From a personal standpoint, how did you get into sports? What really got you into it?
Yeah, no, I grew up watching them with my dad, and when it came to college, I was interested in the school newspaper and journalism. Wasn't very good at math and science, and I was trying to decide what part of the school newspaper I wanted to do. And I was able to take a class, like a sports journalism 101 meant for freshmen, and I really enjoyed that. Just I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's not nothing too heavy. Um, it was interesting, so I decided to do that with the school newspaper, and it's kind of just stuck ever since. I
Mm.
really like sports reporting because you're able to have fun with games and connect with people in a way that maybe other topics don't. But then you still have all these other important issues at the root of sports in a way that's maybe perhaps more understandable for people. They care about important issues like, unfortunately, it comes up in all the leagues. You have sexual assault and
Mm.
domestic violence, like very important topics, and just getting at the core of people through sports.
This winning culture that the Giants now have, and as we all know, there wasn't a lot of winning. There's a lot of moving parts, but this year it's changed with Brian Dable, Joe Shane. From what you've seen, what's the culture been like with Brian Dable running the show there with the Giants?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't here obviously in the seasons prior. I'm well versed. I work with Dan Duggan, who's unfortunately had to cover all those years.
Mm.
But I think the culture change obviously shifted when he came, when he brought in his new staff. But then you look at just even the course of the season, I think it really kind of started when Dable elected to go for that 2-point conversion in the season opener. And that just showed that he's going to fight for his players, he's going to have their backs, good or bad. Like he's aggressive, he wants to win, he's very competitive. And that's something the team has really embraced. They've got Biggie blasting in the locker room, he's a fan of. So it's just this team feels very close knit, and it's not like I've been in a lot of pro locker rooms, but just from what they say and what they've talked about compared to other locker rooms as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's really revitalized, as we've discussed, like the culture there, and really revitalized a couple of big careers. Daniel Jones, obviously, and Saquon. Saquon's now healthy, and he's had a spectacular year. But a lot of attention right now on Daniel Jones because he's been really their best player all year.
In terms of just what he's done for this team and what the coaching staff has gotten out of him, you look at his scrambling. He's got the most rushing yards of his career. He's making very good decisions in the pocket. He looks comfortable, and that has just led to. I mean, with Saquon, a really strong offensive front, even though the wide receiver core might not always have been consistent. That's been a struggle, but now they've kind of gotten it together the last couple of weeks, and they're really rolling at the right time.
Obviously, health is going to be a big thing, and I was looking up on Twitter. I was checking out the tweets that you put out just today on the Giants, and of course the three big names that everyone's talking about with the Giants: Dory Jackson, Leonard Williams, Aziz Ojulari. Getting these three guys back is going to be huge for the Giants, especially in this game. They didn't have a Dory Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, in the first Viking games, correct?
Yeah, no, he wasn't there. So you actually caught me at a really good time. We just came out of the locker room, got to talk to these guys. I didn't get a moment with Adori, but it sounded like Adori was kind of non-committal to
Yeah.
reporters on his status. But we were talking with Xavier McKinney, who also missed that first Vikings game and what it would be like to be back for him. He's pretty confidently it sounds like, oh, we're going to get Adori back, and so that's going to be a big boost for the defense. So he's almost making it seem, or like he knows something that obviously we don't, and with what's going on in practice that he could potentially play. So that would be key when you're trying to defend someone like a receiver like Justin Jefferson. And then also having Aziz Ojulari, Leonard Williams, who've been such a big part of that front defensive line and outside linebackers are so important, especially when Minnesota's offensive line has had some issues and injuries.
Where do you think, and looking back at that Viking game from in December, Giants had a lot of chances in that game. I mean, the fourth quarter they were right there. I felt, obviously the interception stood out, the block punt stands out. If those things don't happen, there were a couple of drops in that fourth quarter. If those things don't happen, there's a good chance the Giants win that game. Where do you think things kind of went south for the Giants in that game? How do you think they can clean it up in this rematch?
I think it's exactly as you said. It's just those little mistakes that all added up to they were this close and they just weren't close enough. That's some points missed on the board. The interception came at a bad time. Richie James had a bad drop at the wrong time. Bellinger had a big fumble. So if they can correct that and play a cleaner game, they're in a really good spot.
Hmm.
One is kind of health, as we mentioned, with getting players back. If Adoree plays, I think that's big. Obviously, he hasn't played in a long time. Almost, I think it would be like 2 months at this point. It feels like. So who knows with kind of rust and what we'll see from that end. That's big. If Saquon has a big game, if they're able to kind of game plan appropriately with that, they went heavy on the passing game in the last matchup. So I'll be interested to see kind of what strategies that they do with that. And then, as I mentioned, that front four kind of core of Aziz, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, who's been a monster this season, and then Kayvon Thibodeau, who's really come into his own the last couple games. I think that front four has a really big potential when the offensive line for Minnesota has struggled with injuries. They might be facing, I don't know the most recent update, but their third string center. So
Mm.
Dexter Lawrence, Dexter Lawrence could have a monster day. I'm not sure the most recent update on that, but it's a strong possibility their third string could be playing.
Yeah, that's going to be a big advantage for the Giants right there when the
Yes,
center's missing. That's going to be huge.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the Vikings, the thing, they've been like Jekyll and Hyde all year. I mean, they're like I think it was like 10 or 11 games this year where they were like within a touchdown or a score of the game going the other way. They give up a lot of chunk yards in the middle of the field. I mean, what do you make of this Vikings team from what you've seen, this year either on television or obviously at the Giants game?
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't been able to watch as many games, but that feels kind of very similar to the Giants, where they've been in a lot of close games. So I think we're gonna just because of that matchup history with both having played so many close games, I think we're in for another one. Playoff football, definitely gonna get that environment. Um, I don't know. I think just based on what we saw in the last matchup, I think the Giants have an opportunity to win if they can clean it up.
Hmm. Obviously, Brian Dable came out the other day, and I believe one reporter asked him about playoff experience, and he said playoff experience in some ways is overrated. Just talk about that quote and your thoughts of what he meant by that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about someone who's been to, I think it's 30 playoff appearances. I don't have the stat in front of me, but he's made quite a few few playoff experiences. This roster kind of has a mixed bag of inexperience. Obviously, Daniel Jones has never been to a playoff matchup, and some of the other guys. But I think it's Dable's been so key on just how important it is to be consistent. So if he's able to kind of keep that mindset in his players, which talking with them today, it seems like it has been the case. Um, it's I don't want to say it's just another game because obviously it's not,
Mm.
but if they're able to kind of approach it that way or do what they need to in their own heads, it's just a matter of like getting through it. So I mean, he's experienced, he knows what it takes to win. He's worked with Tom Brady, best of the best. So I don't know, should be interesting.